Wait till I get to the middle.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Tuesday, March 4th, 2025 regular council meeting. This is a hybrid meeting, and I'm going to call the meeting in order. I'm going to start off with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen is located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa Nations, collectively known as Williams Treaties First Nations, which includes Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Osaley, and Georgina Island First Nations. The Township of Havelock-Belmont-Methuen respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaties First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of the lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. With that, I'll ask that we go into a moment of silent reflection for council and staff to quietly reflect on our duties to the community that we represent. Okay, thank you. All right, then I'm going to ask everyone to make sure your cell phones are off or placed on vibrate so it doesn't disturb the meeting. And remind council of declaration of pecuniary interest. If it arises, you can declare it at that time. We have minutes here from the regular council meeting of February 4th, 2025, special council meeting for budget on February 6th, and regular council meeting February 11th. If all is in order, I'll look for a motion that we receive those minutes. Moved by Councillor Clement, second Deputy Mayor Webb. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so we have a delegation at 11 o'clock. So we're going to jump over to that right now and move into planning. And so our first item here is a merger agreement. Samantha, you're online.
Good morning, council. Nothing further to add at this time.
All right, then. So we have a report for us here with for planning, and it's so the recommendation is here that
it's pretty straightforward. We've had a report on this before as well, so I'll make a motion. We go ahead.
okay. So it's moved by
Recommendation.
Deputy Mayor Webb.
We can't hear you. Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just said the recommendation was pretty straightforward, and I think we've had our previous report on this severance. So I will make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the planner.
Okay, thank you. So it's moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, seconded by Councillor Doherty. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so we have 3 reports here, staff reports for information. There's no motions to be made on these, but if there's any questions, the first report here is the Public Works January department update. Second item here is Parks and Rec department update, followed by a report from Economic Development about the volunteer fair, the volunteer fair that's scheduled to take place April 2nd, 2025. So there's 3 reports there for information. Is there any questions around them? If not, I'll look for a motion that we receive them. Moved by Councillor Clement. Second. Councillor Doherty. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so we have some staff reports here for follow-up action. And the first item on there, Bob, is the outdoor sports complex.
Yes, through you, Mayor Martin, as per the report in the council agenda, there are 2 options presented in this report. Option 1, as council knows, council did direct staff to apply for the Community Sport and Recreation Infrastructure Fund grant application for this project. Staff has applied for that grant. We are still awaiting a response. So there's 2 options with this report. Option 1 is should we get a negative response on that grant application, that we defer this project until a future grant arises, or option two is that we look at the scope of work to be done and get something appropriate that will allow us to proceed without the grant.
Yeah, so we have a couple of options there. Personally, my choice would be option two, that we keep ourselves open to other opportunities if such a thing, the first one doesn't go through. So we could keep moving forward, but it's up to council here. Deputy Mayor Webb.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree. I think council clearly defined its priorities here through budget in terms of budgeting for this project moving ahead. So I would agree in terms of option number two, getting which one to go with.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, could I ask what that project is?
For the ball diamonds over at the new sports station.
Norwood Road.
Yeah, so we've applied for a grant for it, but you know how these grants go, sometimes you don't get them, so we're trying to keep ourselves flexible here that we can, go to plan B.
Sorry about that.
Yep, no problem. Yeah, so I do have a motion for option two, and I have a seconder, Councillor Clement. So questions or comments around the motion? Yep, Councillor, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Martin. My one question is, because of the lagoon being right there, I did read the full report. And it states, there may be a problem when we do phase two of the lagoon. If I'm understanding that correctly. So going forward from this, if we do half of what we said we were gonna do, are we going to be able to finish the project with the expansion of our lagoon?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think Travis has looked into that, and I think that was if we had opened the other lagoon. I don't think that lagoon is causing a problem, is it, Bob?
No.
So
Through you, Mayor Martin, just to clarify, the land use compatibility assessment was completed for this project. It does factor in the opening of the one lagoon, so there's no issue with that. If the township was perhaps looking at opening up the second lagoon, at that point, it would have to be reassessed for odor control.
but at this point, we've only been looking at the one lagoon. I don't think we were even entertaining the second, but there is an option there if we ever wanted to. But yeah, that would squeeze it. Any other questions around the motion? All right. So I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Okay, so the next item on here is the Old Town Hall. And that report that came in was pretty lengthy. So, Bob, do you have anything to add to it, or?
Through you, Mayor Martin, not much to add other than council directed at an open session council meeting on September 3rd that studies be undertaken to review the situation at Old Town Hall. Those studies have now been completed, and this report presents those studies. And the recommendation from our consultants is that 80,000 be allocated to the 2025 budget to further investigate the situation at Old Town Hall.
So, yeah, so I think this is the third study we've had done since I've been on council, or
The fourth study.
so it's something that we can study ourselves to death, but the only thing good I've seen is they seem to be going down instead of up. But I think it's because we've done a lot of work over there, and it's a little cheaper than the last one because I think we did the roof. So it probably came off of the list from the last assessment that we had. But that being said, we know it's going to be an expensive venture, but if we keep asking for these, it's not going to go down in price, and we've already committed that we're going to do it in the last term of council. So we need to start moving on and going along with these recommendations, or we just can't keep putting it off. I think that's why we're where we are. It's been put off and I'll take some of the blame. I've been on enough councils that we've received these reports and we haven't acted on them. And right now it's time to start moving and get a plan in place. So that's just my opinion. Councilor Doherty, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. What did the previous council commit to? Sorry, I must
There was a lot of delegations around saving the town hall, and at near the final year of the term, or the second last year of the term, we met with the group and we had said that we committed that we would start working toward the solution. I don't have it wasn't videoed or anything, was it?
I'd have to find it.
Yeah. We can bring that back, but there was an agreement that we would start working towards fixing it, but we needed a new assessment because the old assessment was left so long. So we now have an assessment and, and there's some direction there, so.
through you, Mr. Mayor, follow. Then why are we going through all these studies and everything? If we've already committed, we're going to do it. Why don't we just get the cost and start spending?
So that's what we have now.
Not the way I read the report, but perhaps I misread it.
Well, the study says that we need to do a deeper dive into what's in the basement of it. So that would be the next step here, that we find the money to pull off the paneling downstairs, look at what's behind the walls. Like the assessment that we got was it was just all visual, and that's the way they normally do it. But their suggestion here in the study is that we dig in deeper, get a real cost of what it's going to be to move forward. Right now, they're just giving approximates.
A follow-up user. So what we have said, previous council, is we're going to fix it regardless of the cost or the condition of the building.
We were working from an old study when we decided to go ahead with that, but we said we need an updated study. So.
Well,
help us move forward.
thank you. I'm confused.
Copy.
Through you, Mayor Martin. So we're looking at, it says high level cost, $1.2 million. So we need to add 80,000 more to that, or would that include the 80,000 that we're gonna do on the next study?
No, through you, Mayor Martin, that does not include the 80,000. It also does not include the accessibility portion. So a cost analysis would have to be brought forward for that as well.
Yeah, Pat, this is a public, it's not a public meeting here.
Listen, if we can't all as a group, pardon me, Mayor, and all the councilors.
Yeah, like I can't, Pat, this is a council meeting. I can't take anything from the crowd right now.
I'd like to just bring to council's attention that right
I
today,
can't, Pat, this is,
well, I'm gonna tell you anyway, right today.
Pat, please, it's, talk to us after. We're just sorting this out now.
I thought you quit that even after we can't state anything. Is that true or not?
Call me after the meeting anytime. It's, or you should call before, but this is,
But the worst part of it is right now, you have all our councilors right here asking questions and they don't know the answers.
so we can defer this and you can give time if we need to, but I'm just saying, this is, this thing here right now is giving us a recommendation that we do an $80,000 deeper dive into this thing. We are in budget, so it does help, and
Yeah.
But so,
Very already passed.
but
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just kind of confused here in terms of, I understand we're trying to get, I guess, more details in terms of what we need to do up there, but I think it has been said that we have done at least 2, if not 3 other reports in the past. The number we have here in terms of the low end 960, the high end 1.2 million, where did we get that number from? Because I'm just further to that, all I'm saying is that it seems like we already have an estimate here on certain repairs that need to be done. So why are we going out for another 80,000? Why don't we start with whatever we got these numbers and work from there? And maybe that would be more feasible economically for the township.
Through you, Mayor Martin, that is an option for council. But as stated in the report, this was a visual inspection, and they are recommending that further inspections be done to ensure that if this building is in fact restored, it's restored properly and safely.
Should we have had them here for this,
We can ask them if you like.
like it's, seems like there's a lot of questions around it still, so. And I know it's a lot of money and, the only way I justify it is you can't build a building for 1.2 million, so. If you're gonna have a building in the end, that's a great thing, but we need to know what we're spending it on. So I kind of get what they're doing here. They've done an assessment on this building with a visual, but they haven't looked at what's behind, like, to make a proper assessment, they gotta see the mortar and everything that's behind the walls. You can see it from outside, but it's a pretty thick wall. So I think that's what they wanted to do with this assessment, is to dig in and make sure that they're going down the right path here. But we can invite them back to talk to us about it. So go ahead, Kathy.
So through you, Mayor Martin. So in all the past ones, did no one at all ever do the inside in the basement and take a good look at it?
I thought there was some more detailed, like we used to always talk about the stone and that in there. I thought some of them were more detailed, but like I say, this is the third or fourth one, and it's they're all similar, but there is some hard. Go ahead.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, just there's a lot of questions around this. I was gonna suggest, and if everybody agrees, I'll make the motion that we send this back to staff for review of these past reports we've got, because I know myself, I'm probably not the one to hash out what's in those reports and if it's enough for us going forward. So as I said, I'd like to maybe defer this to our next meeting, have staff building planning look at it, see if what we got in those past reports is enough for us to move on without going for this other 80,000. If it's not, then maybe come and explain to us why we need to go, we need this new report in terms of moving forward. So I don't know. I'll leave that.
I'll ask Jerry.
That's really Mr. Excuse me, I'm really confused because we're going to fix the building anyway. It doesn't matter what's cost. That's what previous council has said. So if the new study comes out and says we need a whole new basement, there's $2.5 million, we're going ahead with that. That's what I'm hearing. Am I not interpreting that correctly? And then the other thing, once we issue the first part of this, it triggers the accessibility study. And how much is it? I don't have the numbers in front of me. What's it going to cost to bring the building up on the accessibility side? So we got, let's go with $1 million. And it's another $1 million to bring it up for the accessibility. And then we find out we have a structural difficulty. So is the past council's motion to proceed at any cost? Is that what it says?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, I don't remember the words at any cost being put out there. I think it was, they made a commitment to examine it, look into it, and possibly rehab it to the best of our ability, given the resources we have here in HBM. And so with that, as I said, we heard from the community that there was a will to keep the building. And for us as a council, as I said, it's for up to us to look for the best way to rehab it, but while still within the economic range here of our residents, right? I don't want to go raising taxes up 10 or 15%. So.
Yeah, like it wasn't an unlimited, the agreement was, we were working from an old thing. We said we need an updated plan forward, but we were working from the old numbers, and it wasn't unlimited. Like it's nobody would do that.
Oh, Mr. I'll take the unlimited away, but when you agree that you're going to keep the town hall, we have obligations then from a safety point of view, we have accessibility point of view, that we're keeping it and we're proceeding with it. How are you going to proceed with it if you don't have money to do it? So, and it's any number, whatever comes up, that's what we're doing. I just want a clarification on that, that's all.
So I think with the motion that the deputy mayor is putting forward, okay, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Martin. I'm not confused with this whole situation. You have asked these people to come, probably not once, but maybe twice, to do the same assessment. And then we didn't do some of the parts of that assessment. Now, my understanding of this new assessment is that if we are going to renovate the inside of it, then that's when we need to do that outer, whatever, what the one you were talking about. I would like to see us move forward on this because all we're doing is spending and wasting tax dollars on all these reports, and then we don't do anything, and then 3 years down the road, we do it again. I would really like us to move forward on this. So if the assessment needs to be done to see if we can redo the inside and that building is okay, then I think we need to move forward with that. And stop with this nonsense of just constantly asking because it's right in the report. They've told us many things already and we haven't done them. So
I think,
let's move forward.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think that's what Deputy Mayor is saying. If we could just get some clarification from staff, if this is going to let us move on, I think that would solve most of our problems. And it's not going to take that long. If we could just understand it better for the next meeting, on what this 80,000, if we have to spend this 80,000, like if it's totally a must, but we don't want to hold this up. I totally agree with you. We need to move on. But I think the motion that the deputy mayor is putting forward will just give us a little bit better of an understanding. Maybe, do we need, like, we probably do, but do we need to? Is there the report that we had, like, so the report that we had, we tore off the front facade downstairs because it recommended it was shot. So we took it off. There's still a little piece of roof that is spoken to in this report, a little rusty roof that's over there that leads downstairs. That's probably 50 years old, but it was a piece that was left from the other. There's little things like that, but just so we're 100% sure what we're moving on here, I think the deputy mayor's motion there would solve that if for the next meeting, if we can just understand what we're getting for this $80,000 and why we're doing it. It's not saying that we're putting it on the shelf again. It's just clarification, which it's a lot of money. So we need to know what we're spending it on. So.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Wright. Further to that, I'd also like in that, I would like staff to examine those past reports and that, as I said, maybe there's information in there that we can use moving forward so we don't have to pay again for the same information. Because I'm hoping that, I said, in those 2 or 3 reports, the information we need to move ahead will already be there. And while it might not be somewhat up to date, hopefully, whether it's the contractors where we're working with, that will be enough for them in terms of, and ourselves in terms of moving forward without having to vote for another $80,000 consulting fee. So.
Well, you're moving that. Okay, so it's moved by deputy mayor that we get back the report on from internal, not this is staff, just to clarify something.
And just further to that, I don't know how much work's gonna do. I would like that expedited. So I mean, if we could get it even within the next, maybe not the next meeting, but the next month.
Yeah.
Just to keep things moving. So.
Okay. And
I'll
Councillor.
second it, but I want it for the next meeting, if at all possible, 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah, and I'll leave that up to staff because I don't know how much that is going to entail to go through those reports. So.
Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. Questions around the motion? All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so next we have correspondence here, and an action item here is with Patterson with regards to a wheelchair repair. So we received a invoice with regards to repair. So anyways, we're the town hall part of it, like it said about donating it to the town hall. We're working on the town hall anyway. I would just say for today, we received this invoice moved by Councillor Doherty. For the seconder. And second by Councillor Clement. Questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Okay. Next, we have a couple of reports for information, correspondence for information. Is there any questions around 2 items? The one was the public the George Street will rebuild communication or Peterborough Housing, I mean, around the work that's happening up there on the building. The other item was the water jet update. Pro Valley, so most of you received those. Do you have a question on that?
No, the three of them are, I'd like to make a comment. I will make the motion, but I'm glad to see George Street being rebuilt. That's
Yeah.
nice to see that coming along. It really is. I'll make the motion to pass it.
Okay, so we move those items for information on correspondence moved by Councillor Clement. Seconder. Second by Deputy Mayor Webb. All in favor? And that's all in favor? That's carried. Okay. So next we move into committee liaison reports. And we have 3 of them there. So we'll do the county council update. Do you have anything from last meeting? No. Okay. So the next item on here is Councillor Flagler, HBM Youth Committee minutes from December 18th and January 15th. Any questions for Councillor Flagler on those? Okay, and the next item is the library board meeting January 16th and 20th, February 20th. Any questions on those? And the last one there is Deputy Mayor Webb with the OPP Peterborough County Board meeting from February 24th. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I just included what I included there. I'm still going through the initial budget the deliberations, I guess we'll call it. So the one table there, as you see, where we're sitting at now is a little less than $5,000 per township for the cost of police services board. That's liable to tick up a little bit, but the goal is to keep that number under 10,000 for all the municipalities. So any comments or questions from council?
Councillor Flagler, go ahead.
You, Mayor Martin. Just a couple of questions. What's peer? I guess that's the stipends, or what do you call them? They get paid to go to this board meeting? Is
Oh, you
that
mean the
correct?
provincial reps?
Let me just scan through here because I know where it is. Oh, it was the report where apparently Peterborough County and it's, I'm not sure if it's Peterborough County staff that's a part of this or what. You know what, I'll defer my question.
Okay. Councillor Doherty, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I missed the library report. I wasn't quick enough. There is one on the expenses. The insurance, they're not covered under ours. So it's a separate item. Okay, good, thank you.
So we have the liaison reports there. If there's any questions that you can talk to Art after.
Yeah, it was in the police report regarding paying to the county council. I know it's the $5,000. What exactly is that for, that each township is paying for?
On page, sorry, somebody pick up here. The table on page 290 that runs through all the costs for the OPP draft budget.
Oh, correct. Okay.
That's divided seven ways, 7 municipalities.
Okay, so, but I'm not sure, what is this OPP? Like, what is this for? Because we pay for our OPP through the provincial police, so what is this
This is a
program?
separate police service board that I sit on, and this is the cost for each municipality to sit on this board.
So the provincial or the county part of it, if there's any staff person there, it's the same as we used to pay staff to do our police service board meeting. Now they have one staff person doing all of the boards. So none of the townships have a direct representative in the township working on the police service board. It's one person from the county. And all of the townships are paying for that one person. So at one time we had a person here that we paid our staff to do all of the police service board stuff. We don't do that now. We're still paying for it in a different way. So,
Is that,
okay,
does that
That one
answer?
didn't answer my question, but that's okay.
Okay,
We already had it. That's okay.
so a motion to receive the reports, I get from to have them over.
No.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Wong, second by Councilor Clement, all in favor. And that's great. I don't have any written notice of motion. Is there any oral notice of motion for today's meeting? Not seeing any. Other business, so in other business, we have to set up a budget meeting. We've got it up here. So what's your thoughts on trying to get another budget meeting going? Either we had a couple of dates that I had the 11th of March next Tuesday or 13th open for next week. That's a Thursday. You can't do either one of them. I have Monday open, but I don't know if that's rushing too much, like, or we can go. Yeah.
Sorry, Jim. Pete's having surgery. That's Monday and Thursday.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. That's why I just threw those 2 dates there. And there's Friday, like there's the 14th, I
You could take
just was
three.
trying to,
Friday, 14th.
Friday the
well, why don't
14th.
we start off and last, like I
Yeah.
just said, what's a good day for her?
Yeah,
and then
like
last
you
of us,
said.
and
So with the 14th part?
Thank
Okay, I'll throw the 14th out there. What's everybody's calendars look like for the 14th of March?
What time?
Whenever, whatever's good for you.
We do morning. That was Thursday.
Or the 20th of the next week, like, you know, like if that gives more time for everybody.
I'm easy with, I'll leave it, whatever anybody
I'm
else.
just leaving out there, 14th or 20th. Let's just start with those days. If the 14th works for everyone in the morning. How's everybody's calendars looking?
Good.
Good? Okay, so 14th. Okay, 14th of March, we'll work on our next, so the mover. We need a mover to secondary, so, Art and Kathy. Jerry, you had a question?
Yeah, what the purpose is, the budget is, the purpose is to finalize and pass the budget on the 14th, or it's just another review? What's,
I don't think a lot of questions have been coming in, so I'm hoping that we can pass it. Or at least finalize it, that we can bring it, like, the way it'll work is once it's finalized here, it'll have to come back to a bylaw in the final meeting, so in another meeting, but at that meeting, it would be nice if we could get it tidied up and well, possibly go to the next meeting for passing of the bylaw.
and through you, Mayor Martin, if we have some thoughts on it and maybe want to make some changes that we've already reviewed or addition to, will we provide them prior to or do it at the same time?
It would be easier if they're prior to, if that's okay with everyone. That would probably help the process.
Through you, Mayor Martin, any revisions from previous meetings, we would need motions to revise.
So at that meeting,
At
we
that
could do the
meeting.
motions, but if we could be prepared for it, it would help if, you know, if we could, you know, speak to staff and give them an idea of what we're gonna be bringing forward then. And yeah, we'd have to come to a motion for all of us at that meeting, but it'd be nice to be prepared.
Yeah, once we know what the meeting, I think.
So the meeting's on the fourth, so we had a mover and a secondary and all in favor. That's carried. It's the 14th of March. Okay, so we can do the bylaw here. So we do have one bylaw right now for, I think, one for the merger agreement. Moved by Jerry, second by Kathy. All in favor? And that's carried. So I'm gonna look for a recess here first. We could take we don't meet till 11 o'clock for the delegation. So let's take a 15-minute recess and we can bring close.
I'll see if they can come early.
Okay, and then Bob can see if they can come early. So that's moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, second by Councillor Doherty. All in favor? Okay, we're back in our regular meeting. I'll look for a motion that we resume. Moved by Councillor Doherty, second by Councillor Clemens. All in favor? And that's carried. Okay, so we're gonna go through our delegation here. They're online now. So Seema, so welcome. Gustavo, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay. So we're back with about the lagoons and the process that's ahead of us. So welcome. So I think this is the same report we had the last time.
Slide
Yeah, it's slightly different, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you able to share your screen, Sabrina? Or?
I believe I started sharing. Let me know when you're able to see my screen.
Okay,
Yeah.
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So good morning, all. Thank you for inviting us again to discuss the project. The main objective for today is to discuss some funding opportunities that are out there to help support this project and maybe other projects the municipality has. And I think there's some outstanding questions from before that we can address, but ultimately the main goal is to have a good direction from council on whether to pursue the funding opportunities and how much or what scope to pursue as part of the opportunities.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll talk first about the kind of the status of the project. We'll revisit some of the questions that came up last time, and then we'll talk about the two funding opportunities in question, and we'll open it for discussion and questions. Since last time we're in the process of completing the design of the phase one of the upgrades, which we'll revisit what that involves, but there's a few studies that had to be completed. So it's a topographical survey, field investigations to look at the utilities. There's a archaeological assessment and natural environmental assessment that was completed. And we're in the process of completing preliminary design for the upgrades. And as you see here, the timeline is for phase one to be ready to go to tender late this year, and construction starting next year. So just to revisit what phase one, phase two, what all that means, just going back to the Class EA that was completed a few years ago, it identified several challenges. So the first one is there's growth identified. and that south Havelock development, as well as other potential growth within the township. The second problem was that the facility and the wastewater system, the wastewater collection system within the township has a lot of infiltration and inflow, which leads to all that water ending in the collection system and going to the plant, which has to deal with it somehow. And historically, there's been a challenge dealing with those wet weather flow events. And third challenge is that originally the plant was meant to receive some of the septage that's produced within the township. And because of these challenges with capacity, the ability to receive septage is limited. So there's the three main problems that were trying to be addressed that were addressed by the EA in 2023. And as you recall, the recommendations were to complete upgrades at the plant and do them in phases to address the various components of the project, as well as to reduce the overall capital hit on the township. So you see here, there's like first recommendations: initiate phase 1 upgrades as soon as possible. Then continue to monitor flows to the plant, continue reducing I&I, and then update the various studies to make sure there's adequate funding. And then phase 2 was meant to proceed only when the capacity was triggered. Within we recommended that, and this is a standard practice, that when the average day flows to the plant reach about 80 to 90% of its current rated capacity, then that it's time to start construction for the next phase to make sure that you're not stuck without and have to put the old development on hold. So these are the general recommendations of the EA. And here just have show you what phase 1 meant. So phase 1 was meant to address the wet weather flow issues within the plant. So simplistically, it's we're taking the flow that exceeds the capacity of the plant and storing it within the lagoons. And this is very, very schematic. The pre-design that's been completed will show a more refined picture of what the upgrades actually will entail. But generally, we're talking about using an existing asset, the lagoons, which are currently sitting there without being used, as something you can use to help you meet or mitigate wet weather flow issues, as well as provide additional operational flexibility to the plant operators. So that's what phase 1 entails, and phase 2 it's a capacity expansion of the plant. So your current plant is rated for 1,200 cubic meters per day on average. And I think the ultimate growth projection meant that the plant needed to be expanded up to 2,500 cubic meters per day, something like that. So to be able to handle the additional flow, you would need additional treatment processes. And here just schematically, so you have more processes to separate the solids from the liquids in the wastewater, and then all those solids have to be managed and treated. And then the effluent from the treatment process has to be filtered and disinfected before it goes to Plato Creek. So conceptually, this is what phase 2 involves. So it's obviously a more complicated and more expensive endeavor. And this is from last time we presented the cost estimates for phase 1, which were about 5.5 million. These were developed during the Class EA, and they're very high level, very preliminary. So as the design progresses, there may be opportunities for these costs to be reduced relative to what was budgeted, but obviously when we are doing master planning or EA level exercises, we want to be very conservative. So you see here on the left hand bottom left, you see engineering contingency percentages. Those are expressed as percentages. Contingency 30% is high because it's planning level, but as the details become known and more work is done during the design, that contingency allowance can be reduced, right? So it's typical that once you get to the final tender estimate, that contingency number would be down to 10%. So you have a better understanding of what the cost will be of the project. But at a planning level, 5.5 million was what we recommended was carried for budgeting. And we'll get to this when we do the cost this discussion on the funding application. We recommend that you carry that number to when you are asking for money from the feds or from the province. And phase two, again, there's a 14,850. Again, this is a planning level, high level estimate, which obviously will be reduced as detailed design progresses. But the idea initially when the EA was completed was that this would be a future endeavor. It wasn't required immediately and could be delayed, therefore. So I think we have some of the questions from the last session. Why are the phase one upgrades required now? If you recall, there was three main questions or three main problems that the plant is facing. Number one is how do you deal with growth? Phase one does not really give you that much ability to deal with growth. It sort of recovers lost capacity, but the main goal of phase one is to deal with peak flows. So if I can give you an analogy, like well, you've seen this picture before, but it just shows you the red line shows you what your average day capacity is, and the green line shows you what flows have been historically, and this hasn't been updated to last year, but you see that there's been periods when the actual flow to the plant has exceeded its capacity. So it doesn't happen all the time, but it has happened several times. And but you see that purple line that your I&I reduction efforts have paid off in the sense that you went from being at capacity or over capacity back in 2019 to now being under capacity on average, right? But you still see in May 2023, for example, you see that big peak that exceeded the capacity. So although you've already addressed some significant I&I and reduced your overall flows to the plant significantly relative to what they were before, you're still seeing these peaks that exceed the capacity of the plant. And so just to give you us an example of other facilities or infrastructure that is sized for different kind of conditions, right? Like you have roads, so your roads have to be designed for your peak rush hour traffic, right? Even though there's periods of time when there's no cars whatsoever, but your trucks or your roads have to be sized for the peak flow. So same thing with a wastewater treatment plant. You have to be able to handle those peaks because eventually all that wastewater has to be treated. And if those peaks exceed the capacity of the plant, then the quality of the water that gets discharged to the environment doesn't meet the effluent criteria, and then you get into issues with the ministry. So the goal of phase one is to help you shave off those peaks such that at no point in time do flows exceed the capacity of the plant, the current rated capacity of the plant. Okay, so that's basically why phase one is important. And it targets more like environmental and operational and liability concerns than growth related concerns. It deals with peak flow, and just by virtue of you having that ability to handle the peak flow, it gives you more breathing room to accommodate development within your rated capacity. So do you want to go to the next slide? Or I don't know if there's any questions. I can't see if anyone asked questions. So sorry, I just see
I
a
do
full
have
screen.
one question here.
Yeah.
Councillor Doherty, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Can we go back to the other slide? The blue line, it says that's water demand. Is that the water that comes out of the tap?
Yes. Oh, yes. So sorry, I forgot to mention what the blue line means. Yes. Yeah. Just it's just to show the
Yeah, no,
contrast.
that's fine. That's fine. So this is the water, when you turn on the tap, goes into the sewer system, correct?
Some of it, yes. Yeah.
Okay, some of it. How much does it? Like
It's
statistically, is there an average?
we don't know for your system, but in generally, like across typical systems, it's about 80% of your water turns into sewage, because if you this covers the entire year, so there might be periods of time when people water their plants or their lawns or fill their pools if they have
Thanks,
anything.
I get that.
Yeah.
My point is, if you have that much water going in, that's the maximum amount of water you have going out, unless it's I and I.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Yes.
Because what the blue line there, in essence, if everything was equal, the green line or the absorption into the sewer system would be just below where the blue is, right?
Exactly. You hit it right on the head. Exactly. That's exactly the point. Yeah.
Okay, so what they're saying is that we have to control the weather, because I assume that May of 25 will be much similar to May of 23, 20, where we're going to get a runoff and we're going to have infiltration. How do you stop that having peaks? I mean, we're not in charge of the weather. I'm just curious. And then again, we seem to have I think we got a larger problem with I and I. If the green lines are way up there, we have a huge problem, even though we've addressed some of 2019. I think we did Highway 7, the man covers, and we did a little bit on George Street. But we still have a massive infiltration problem, do we not?
Yes.
Can I use the word massive, or just a little bit, or some, or what
No,
would be
I
a good
mean,
word?
it's massive is, I guess, so it's all relative, but you do have an infiltration problem, and this is something that every municipality in Ontario is facing, right? It's the issue of the disconnect between the green and the blue line. It causes a lot of issues.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So maybe just to follow up on that, we did have a report, the bigger report. It was showing what it would cost us to fix the infiltration. It was $20 billion or something like that. It was a crazy number to fix everything that's underground. So it is kind of a Band-Aid fix when we're looking at fixing the lagoons, but it's the most economical way of doing it is to have an overflow with the lagoons that are already there. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, there's like it's you can see it as two ways of fixing the problem. One is you have see a bunch of holes that you have to plug, right? And
Yeah.
then the other places you just have a tap at the end that you could valve off, I guess, or store somewhere else. So it's simpler to fix the problem, or I mean, you're not solving the root cause of the problem, but you're solving the consequences of the problem by storing the excess flow at the plant. But if you recall, like from our recommendations, like we still recommend that you continue fixing your I&I gradually. It's just like you mentioned, the only solution to fixing I&I is to find all the holes within your system, right? And plug in them, right? And And
So we have been picking away on that, like George Street
Yeah.
right now. It'll be interesting to see what we saved there. All the
Yeah.
other streets that we did when we did any of the sewers, we did fix a lot of things there, and it's starting to show, but
Right.
there's still a lot farther to go.
Yeah, and like the council mentioned, last year was not as wet of a year as this year is expected to be, right? So it is unclear how much of the reductions that you saw last year have to do with there being less infiltration and how much has to do with there being less precipitation and less groundwater to begin with. So it is you've done quite a bit, but your problem still remains. And I know you're planning some upgrades, some replacement of sewers. I forget which street it is, but that hopefully will also address a significant portion of the issue. But I think it'd be unrealistic to expect that that will be the solution, and you don't have to do anything else.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So this table just
I do have one more question here, Councillor Doherty.
Through your chair, the slide you have up there now indicates we have 584 service connections. So that's the people that are hooked up to the sewers now.
I see it. Yes, I believe that's the right number. Yeah.
Okay, now, if let's use Peterborough Housing on George Street as an example, is it considered one connection or several? How do you judge a connection?
In this case, the slide here is showing a service connection is you have your sewer and you have a lateral connection that goes to the property. So depending on how the specific property is developed, you might have like a single manhole at the end of the property that goes to a lateral, goes to a sewer. So when we're talking about cost here, we're talking about when you're replacing the sewer, you have to replace all the laterals that attach to it, right? To make sure that you restore service to the existing system. So specific properties, how they're
Sorry,
serviced.
could you just repeat that again?
Yeah, so if you picture under the road, you'll see a sewer, and attached to that sewer are laterals, they're called. They're like pipes that come from the various properties. So when we're talking about the cost estimate here, we're saying that as part of your replacement of your collection system, you'll have to replace the pipes. You'll probably have to rehabilitate or replace some manholes, and also you have to replace the laterals or service connections. Now, the specifics of how each development or each property is serviced, I don't have that, but the point of this number was to show you that those costs have to be incorporated in your calculation.
Go ahead.
The follow through you, Mr. Okay, what I want to get at is how many units. And the first slide under the phase one, it says we get 136 more units. Is that, if we do the lagoon?
Yeah, and again, I think this was something that was presented during the last session, and there was a lot of more context provided to this slide explaining how those numbers were arrived at, right? So I know there's been discussions with township staff as to, there's been new numbers, new projections, new updated values. So I would discourage kind of just fixating on that number per se, because it might be 136 or it might be 150. There's new numbers that tell you how much flow capacity you have, right? But the point is that just simplistically, phase one is addressing the wet water flow capacity constraints and remaining within your current capacity, the 1,200 cubic meters. If you remember, it's 1,200 cubic meters, and the previous chart showed about 800 cubic meters per day on average going into the plant. So that remaining capacity, if you translate it into a number of units, that's the number of units you have remaining, right? So whatever you have at rated capacity minus the flow you have coming into the plant minus the flow you have allocated already to development that's ongoing right now, that's how much more additional units you can service, right? So I believe this number 136 accounted for the fact that you already committed to service the long-term care facility, and there's other developments that have already been allocated. But yeah, so again, I think I would not necessarily fixate on these how many units you can service, because as we were told on Friday by the township, there's some new projections, some new numbers that revise these estimates. But bottom line is phase one allows you to service up to your current rated capacity, whereas phase two expands the rated capacity to 1580. So 1580, the number you see on the left there. So that gives you, based on the projections that were done in the EA, that gives you the ability to service up to your build out within the township based on projections that were provided by the planning staff as well as the county's official plan projections.
Another follow-up?
A follow-up here, Mr. Mayor. I'm still, okay, I won't get fixated on the 136. Let's just say it's a number around there. So the long-term care is already in the numbers for capacity or is not?
Yeah, so the number that was...
Sorry, is it in or out? I guess that's the question.
Is it in or out? Which number, sorry?
The long-term care.
The long-term care is, are we taking it as part of the flow and hookups in our capacity numbers? Or when we hook it up, hopefully in 25, that number will reduce because we're hooking it up. I'm not explaining it right.
Yeah, no, I think I understand what you're saying. So maybe if I'll try to say in my own words and you tell me if I understand exactly what you're saying. So the long-term care facility, I think there's a certain number of beds or something that were adopted and turned into equivalent number of people, and that number was carried to in the EA as something that was already approved, right? So that was something that you have to service, you committed to service. And so whenever you're doing your remaining capacity calculations, you have to account for that as if it was existing. So your 800 number that we were showing in the previous slide, you add the equivalent flow corresponding to the long-term care, and you subtract that from your remaining capacity, and that's how much you can actually allocate for future development.
So you, Mr. Mayor, and I guess that's the number I'm looking for.
Right. So these numbers, and again, there's not enough context in these slides, but the 136 number was the number remaining in unallocated capacity. So after accounting for the long-term care facility.
But we do have Amber here from Aqua. Maybe she could just help us with like what we're trying to find out here, because I've always been operating that those numbers were already in there for the long-term care, and there were 29 units behind it that were already accounted for in our numbers. But Amber, can you help us?
And community care went in after the 23.
Well, it was a part of it too, yeah.
Good morning, Gustavo.
Morning.
I thought you said it was on, sorry. Good morning, Gustavo and council. I can shed some light on this. So the long-term care home was supposed to be constructed in 2025, and it's in the environmental ESR. I forget what it's called right now. It's understood that the proposed long-term care facility would be constructed in 2025. No additional development should be approved until phase one has been completed. Upon completion of these upgrades, the plant would accommodate approximately 80 new detached semi-units or something equivalent. So I think we've gone ahead with the long-term care. It was part of the calculation above. So when we've done SEMA, Aqua has done some calculations to bring it up to speed and bring it a little bit more current with the times. And when you do the phase one upgrade, It includes the 136 long-term care. The calculation brings you to approximately 202 homes equivalent per rated capacity once you complete phase one. So we're in a sense behind the times because we haven't completed phase one yet. So now we've ran numbers. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Is that me?
I don't know.
So we need to do phase one to continue with our capacity. Because we've ran new numbers, because the ESR is based on 2018, where it was the highest flow that Havelock's seen in quite some time, your capacity was lower than it should be for actuals. So our estimate, hoping SEMA would be able or can confirm this, is that you have right now a capacity of 202 homes. But that gets you at 100% capacity, and the ministry won't let you run at 100 capacity. They'll let you run at 80% capacity. So when you add those, take away the numbers, I think it's an equivalent to 83 homes right now, just once we ran the total. So you have enough at this time for 83 homes. But if you do phase one, you could go up to 202 homes if you're looking for capacity numbers.
Does that 83 include the old age home? Or is that 83 on top of the old age home?
On top of, according to our calculations, but I should say that we're just doing the calculation based off of the ministry guideline, and SEMA is probably the best to confirm it. And I'm pretty sure we had asked, and I'm pretty sure it was confirmed, but I need to confirm that with SEMA and Thomas Cowpack. Is that correct? Your colleague?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he was confirming those numbers.
So what you're telling me now is that even when the old age home comes online, at this moment, we have capacity for another 80 homes before going to phase one?
According to our calculations, it's a possibility, yes.
Okay, but the letter you just read from SEMA, does it not say that we can't build? I thought what I'm hearing through, at least through building and planning, is that we can't build one new home now. We're at capacity after that comes online. So I'm just wondering where the discrepancy is coming from, right? Because you're telling us one thing and obviously SEMA is telling us that we can't go ahead, so.
Correct, and SEMA did the study 2 years ago and based their values from 2018, 2019, 2020, where we had some very severe high flows, especially in 2018. So they had to run a 3-year average. So they did a worst case scenario. That's the way it goes now. But with the I&I reduction that we have done, and it has made a difference, it does give you a little bit more wiggle room. But at the end of the day, the ESR does say that you have to complete phase one to continue. And we're kind of behind on that.
And I think that's where we're heading. It's just in terms of moving us along. So I don't know, it hasn't been decided, but I'm getting the feeling that everybody's willing to move ahead with phase one. So with that being said, for us, if we have capacity for 80 other units, our building and planning can go ahead and start maybe reaching out and trying to build some new houses here in our community if we have capacity. Like the reason we're holding off on building is obviously we've been told by these organizations that we have no capacity, so we don't want to violate the provincial law, in terms of that. But and maybe I'll ask SEMA if they're here, because obviously we've got Aqua telling us we've got capacity for 83 units on top. That's even after the long-term care comes online. But SEMA is telling us that we have no capacity once that comes online, and might not even reach that capacity until that comes online. So I'm just wondering where this discrepancy is arising on the SEMA end.
So I think the document that Amber was quoting was the EA environmental study report that was completed a few years ago. And like she said, those conclusions and those recommendations were based on the average data that we had available at the time of that study. And so the discrepancy now from what I'm hearing Amber is saying is that they've looked at updated data from the last few years at the plant, and they've incorporated the allocated capacity for the long-term care and any other approved developments, and they've done a calculation. It's a standard calculation from the ministry, And they say, therefore, you have this much capacity left, and that translates into these many units. So from what I got from Amber is there might be more room for more development than was originally anticipated, given that the flows have reduced relative to what we had seen in 2018, 2019, 2020. So I guess that's a good news story. The actual number of units that you have to allocate, that's something that I think we would like to revisit and confirm with Amber, but it seems like the data is showing you that you have more capacity than we thought before.
Thank you for that. That's what I'm trying to clarify here, because we're getting mixed messages, and
Right.
in terms of development, we're trying to move ahead here for our residents and whatnot. They're asking for more development, so obviously we're trying to bring that to them. And if we've got capacity to go ahead with another, whatever it be, 50, 60, 70 houses here, we would like to, start moving down that road. So the quicker I think this confusion can be clarified, I think the better, because we've been dealing with this for the better part of 2 or 3 years, kind of getting mixed messages. As I said, we've been trying to move ahead with these developments. We can't because of these capacity issues. So from our part, it would be really helpful if we could get, a clear answer on this ASAP, because as of now, it's just holding up. Obviously it's not going to be a huge development, but it's still in a town our size, 50 or 60 houses is a lot, right? And can mean a lot to the people. So I'm kind of concerned in terms of the mixed numbers here. Like I said, we probably, at least myself, I talk with Amber more than I talk with SEMA, and I've always been getting kind of good numbers from Amber in terms of us being able to move ahead. But every time I get a report from SEMA, or I hear staff say they've got a report from SEMA, they're telling us, not so much we can't build an extra unit. We can't even build an addition on a unit now. Our capacity is so low, and I'm just trying to clarify this confusion and figure out where we actually are.
Right. No, I think, and we could take it as an action for us to sit down with the township staff and Amber and come up with a number that is your number, right? Like this, the problem is we're quoting the 2023 report, which by now it looks like it's obsolete in terms of the actual remaining capacity. So we'll come back to you with a number that you can say, okay, this is what, and also from our perspective and from Aqua's perspective, what is this? Can we say, well, you can service without having a risk of running into issues at the plant, while all this infrastructure that we're recommending is getting implemented. And there's got to be a trigger also within the township to say, hey, we need to start phase 2 now, right? And that number is something we'll have to confirm and agree to with Amber and township staff.
Bob had a question.
Thank you, Gustavo.
Yeah, no problem.
Gustavo, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate your help. Amber, thank you as well for being here. In an effort to simplify as best I can, I'm going to work with the numbers that are in your presentation so we can all reference the same things. So in the slide that reads, there are significant I&I issues. I think it's the previous slide from what's on the screen right now. If we can go back there. That one. So my first question is, can you please define a unit? Is a unit a 3-person household?
Right. Yeah, that's a very important distinction. I forget if it was 3 or if it was 2.8 persons per unit, the value that was adopted as part of the EA.
I believe it was 3.5 people per household.
3.5. Okay. So 3.5. So
I'm sawing it off in the middle and say 3. So 3. So that slide says there were reductions in I&I, and it says that reductions provided additional capacity for growth, approximately 200 units. So when I read that, it tells me that our I&I reductions in 2019, that work created approximately 200 units for us. Am I reading that correctly?
yeah, like the top right. No, yes.
Correct, top right. So we gained 200 units with our I&I work. We are about to bring online here in 2025 a 128 bed long-term care home. So my math says we can absorb that with the I&I work that was done. Am I reading that correctly?
Yes. That was like, so like based on the numbers we were using, the 3 people per unit, that accounts to 42 units roughly, right?
Right.
So 42 units of long-term care development, yes.
So then we would have approximately 160 units left over based on the I&I work we've done. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, based on this number of roughly 200 units gained, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, through you.
Right now, so I think I think I know where you're going, but what Amber pointed out and we mentioned before is that you don't want to get all the way to the brim, right? You don't want to get to 100%, right?
We understand that.
Yeah,
We understand the 80% rule. Absolutely. I'm just trying to work with the numbers here. So we have approximately 160 units of capacity right now based on the I&I work that was done. And based on the fact that the long-term care home is coming online here later this year, we're still 160 units to the good.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, to get you to 100% capacity, yes.
Okay. So if we go to the next slide, please. So the next slide shows us 136 additional units at 3.8, 3.5 people per unit if we do phase one. So now that's 136 plus the 160 that we already have. Is that correct?
No, that includes the number we were talking about before. So and again, I think going by memory from what Amber quoted, the reason what phase one upgrades were recommended ASAP because they deal with potential non-compliance issues at the plant during wet weather flow conditions. So the recommendation was to proceed with those ASAP and to let's say limit growth or be very careful with what you approve while you don't have that capacity available, right? While you don't have the ability to manage wet weather flow, right? So again, I think the confusion here and what's lacking in context here is that I don't want to give the impression that phase one is a growth driven project. It is mainly meant to address risks of non-compliance and environmental spills and so on and so forth. Because your rated capacity is not really tied to phase one, right? Your rated capacity will remain the same, 1,200 cubic meters, and those 160 or 136, whatever number of units that you have remaining are you have those remaining. It's just you don't have the capacity to deal with weather flow, right? So I mean, I'm not sure if that's clear, and I think I would like to understand sort of what your end question is, because maybe I can give you some clarity on that, and in my opinion too.
My follow-up question then is the rated capacity that we're talking about. So when we talk about having an additional 160 units based on the I&I work that we've done, or 136 units based on phase one, does that take us to 100% capacity? Is that what we're measuring against?
I think it was, yes, it was not to, I don't know if it was 100% or it was basically to the point where you need to do phase two.
And phase two is to be done when we hit 80%, right?
Yeah, 80 to 90%. Yeah.
Right. So the 136 units that are on the screen right now would take us to 80%. And that's when we need to kick in phase two. Is that correct?
Yes, and again, the number will have to be confirmed, but yeah, that's the intent of the slide to say this is before you do 136, and then you have to do the next phase, and then the next phase, right?
And that 136 that's on the screen right now does not include the long-term care home.
No, that's already been accounted for. So that's the 136 is remaining over and above the after. Yeah.
Over and above the long-term care home.
Yes, yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Okay. Maybe you can digress. It says how many units? 136. I think I heard you say is phase one has nothing to do with unit increases. It's simply to correct the overflow. So why are we representing that we're going to be getting more units with the first phase when you just said that we aren't, we're just taking care of historical problems and maybe another spring runoff? Am I right there, or did I misinterpret?
Yeah, I can see how this slide without context could be interpreted that way. And yeah, I apologize. There's not enough context here to explain that. This was just meant to indicate a progression of implementation of projects, but it doesn't necessarily mean causality or right. So bottom line is the recommendation is phase one is required no matter what you do, right? You should do it no matter what you do.
So what's all the discussion about the units then?
Why? I don't know
Yeah,
either.
I'm confused. We've had 6 meetings, always been about $5.5 million. We have taxpayers that kind of like to know what we're getting, value for money. Are we simply correcting a problem, or are we getting capacity to have growth? I was of the opinion we're getting capacity for growth, but obviously I'm erroneous there.
Yeah, so the phase one expansion is meant to address capacity concerns with wet weather flow, independent of growth.
Quiet out there, please. Pat. Okay.
Sorry, I missed that.
No, there was somebody talking. Let's go ahead, carry on.
Okay, sorry. So yeah, to answer your question, phase one is not directly linked to growth, right? It's in fact, I mean, again, this is not my purview, but there's a development charges study that was completed or is being completed for the township, and I don't believe that they included all or most of the costs for phase one as part of the DC because it's not giving you more development capacity per se. Phase one.
So I think we're getting too wrapped up in all the numbers here, like as far as, I think when you look at that picture we were looking at before with the green and the blue, and I think like Councillor Doherty said, the blue is our output, our water that's going out through the system. When we first did this system way back, we were all excited because we went, I think with the lagoons, we were like 600 cubic meters and we went to 1,200. We were told we're going to be able to double our capacity. Well, then the infiltration came into it. And that's what the problem is here right now, because if we do this phase one and eliminate most of that infiltration, those green lines on there, theoretically, without getting into those numbers again, we have capacity there for building that we're not going to risk filling Plateau Creek with contaminated water. The lagoons will take care of that for us. What that number is, we don't want to get too wrapped up in it, but what we need to do is move on with phase one so we eliminate that because it's a lot cheaper than fixing all the pipes in the ground, but we continue to fix the pipes in the ground and hopefully even with what we've done on George Street already, but by the end of this summer, by the time we get to the end of phase one on George Street, our numbers are going to keep hopefully going in the right direction, and that phase two can be pushed out for more and more years because they're both huge hits, but this one is just giving us a little wiggle room to be able to grow like the deputy mayor is saying, and that's what we're looking for. No, but it will. It's common sense that has to come into it too, and I know there's not a lot of common sense, but really, when you look at it, without getting down to try and nail down if we can build 3 houses or 4 houses, we're gonna be able to build more houses. I don't know what it is. It might only be 10. It might be none. Maybe there's gonna be a problem and an earthquake's gonna happen and all of our pipes are gonna leak. I don't know. But just going by these things here, our big thing here now is we gotta keep ahead of the curve here and get phase 1 going. And be prepared for phase 2, get all of these assessments. We've seen how long it took to get to this part. It's like, it's still a year out before we can start doing any of that work. If we want to wait until we need it, we might as well just roll up the streets right now, because we're not going to be able to ever move, because people aren't going to wait for us. We got to prepare for what's ahead of us here. So, to me, most of this stuff is common sense stuff. It's just we're trying to understand it. And I think there's still time for that. We still need to work on all these details that we're looking for right now. But we've been told 3 times now that we're almost at capacity. And it's because of infiltration. It's not because, like I said, if you look at that blue line, we got 1,200 capacity and we're only running 500 and 600. We got lots of room, but it's those green lines that keep messing us up here. And that's all the underground infrastructure that we got that's 100 years old. So. Go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree. This is something we need to do. We need to keep the ball moving here. So when it comes to that point, I'm willing to make a motion to move ahead with phase 1. My one comment with that would be, I still want to hear back from both Aqua and SEMA if they have to work together in terms of clarifying this number.
Yeah.
So that being, we know that the long-term care is coming online, I think in August. So. And what I'm being told by Aqua is there's still capacity. So I ran a quick thing here with the numbers. I don't know if my numbers are right, but I'm assuming I'm somewhere around 74 units. We're still good with, right? That assuming that we just said 42 would be taken up by the old age home. That still leaves us not with the number I'd like at 70 or 80, but still we're at 30 or 40. Whatever that number is, whether it's 3, whether it's 83, we need to know, because there are people at this moment still looking to build in our town. So whether, to the mayor's point, whether it's 5 or 6 houses or 60 houses, we need to know that number so we can go ahead and start growing our community. So the sooner we can get that number, the better. And if we can do that, hopefully by the next meeting, I don't know, that would be terrific. So, because I think we've been waiting long enough for that number in terms of not getting any clarity on it. So.
Hey, Councilor Doherty.
Well, I guess I confused. If it was so common-sensy and such an easy decision to go for phase 1, we didn't have to we weren't doing it for growth. We were doing it for administrative reasons because of the overflow, right? Because of the peaks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, in the sense that I do have to say, I completely agree with the proposal to move forward with phase 1. It does account for the high flows, and we are doing I&I. So the fact that if we're accounting for high flows, that I&I fix might actually give you more capacity. So you're right in the sense that it can, but right now we're addressing a problem that we have right now with I&I.
I'm through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at this graph and it goes from 17 to 23. The green line is over periodically all the time. For the last 2 years, I've been sold on the deal that we're going to do the lagoon to increase capacity for growth and correct our overflow issue. What I'm hearing today, at least what I'm hearing, maybe I'm mishearing it because common sense is not my forte, is that we really are doing it for the peaks, for the flow, the inflow. That's the main reason. I think I heard them say that, or did I misinterpret that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and I think Gustavo will agree with me. When we did the dossier for the wastewater expansion, the proposal for phase 1 was to deal with the I&I, but it also took into account your current buildings that are in ground. So the capacity is being addressed, long-term care in phase 1.
Long-term care, Peterborough housing.
The one with Engage Engineering's never had shovel in the ground already. So,
but not permitted, just shovel in the ground.
what was already structured or planned for Havelock
Okay.
is part of phase 1. So in a sense, it does deal with current capacity expansions that you're doing for the long-term care.
Sorry, and I think what Mr. Council had mentioned, I think what you had really understood like the concept of behind this by we're trying to reduce the green lines so that they're closer to the blue lines, and by doing that, right, we are essentially freeing up that capacity, right? So if those lines on the green don't go out to the environment, right? But then instead gets stored in a lagoon and then gradually treated, then that means in essence that you're gaining back that 1,200 cubic meter per day rated capacity that you were exceeding, right? But that's as far as I can say in terms of now that means how many units or etc. Like the goal of the phase one is first and foremost reduce those peaks, right? That's the main goal. It's from an operational, environmental, liability perspective, and yes, in the end it means that you have 1,200 cubic meters of existing rated capacity that you can service up to.
Right now, I'm seeing about 15 peaks that went over the 1,200
Yeah.
capacity. And that's the thing that we want to eliminate right now. That being said, if we can eliminate that and get it down, like you say, closer to the blue line, we are going to have capacity. What that number is, we'll find out. Like the deputy mayor said, we'll find out what the number is. Ideally, if it eliminated those green lines completely, that would be great, because right now I'm worried about when we do go those 15 times over. Thankfully, Aqua's been able to keep, I don't know how you're doing it to get it through the system to keep us out of trouble, but we haven't had to put that news alert out that we filled Plateau Creek. So that's a good thing, but it could happen if we keep going this way. One day we're going to be the one on the news saying that we dumped our sewage into the Plateau Creek, and it's not going to go good. So we need to move on with it and let's stop that.
Just a question, kind of, because I'm interested. Other townships, like to the mayor's point, there were over this in say 15 places over the span of 6 years. So if I went to Norwood, would their graph maybe not be as extreme, but would they have, when we have significant rain events, would they be over? Or would it, Marmor? Like, so basically is everybody over during these rain events, or are we special in that? Well, no, but because, no, but that's the way I've been treating it, is that we are special because we know we're on a swampy area here, right? And in terms of, we might be dealing with something that others aren't, but Amber giving me a nod here tells me that everybody's dealing with this. So why are we so concerned with whatever it is, 3 or 4 spikes, if everybody else is doing the same thing?
I mean, I can't comment on Norwood, or I can give you examples of other municipalities that have similar issues, but they're farther advanced in their issue. There's facilities up at say Timmins where the purple line or whatever is over the red line always. Like not just during dry wet or the wet weather, but always. And so the ministry has basically given them an order. You have to fix it. You have 5 years.
Okay. So further to that. So we did some significant I&I work around 2019, 2020 there, and we see where the graph went down. So before that, we were running right at capacity, right, Amber? 1,200.
That's correct. So,
and what we did there, while significant, I think won't be as significant as the replacement of all the sewers on George Street. I mean, to me, we're doing probably 1/3 of the underground work in our community here through this George Street project. So if I went down by 380 by doing some manhole covers and a few camera inspections, is it fair to assume that once we get George Street done, this is going? I know you don't know because we're trying to look into the future here, but myself, I'm assuming, as I said, based on the scope of the work we did 5 years ago, the work we're doing now should be a lot more significant in terms of helping I&I with new sewers and whatnot. So I'm like, if would that number drop down to say in the 600s? Like, is that something that's possible?
It's possible.
Because if that happens, then we're not. To me, Yeah,
Great.
we're good with phase one. That's great.
Yeah, great. It would be great news. Yes. I cannot quantify what it's going to be because we don't know to what extent that pipe or that section of pipe is leaking, right? But you're definitely doing the right thing, right? You're going to gain capacity. We don't know how much capacity you're going to gain, but you're going to gain some for sure.
Okay. Thank you, Gustavo.
Yeah. And sorry, I don't know if we're running out of time, but there was other slides that we wanted to show. And I think our main overall goal was to just present the funding opportunities there are, understanding that well, phase one is something that we recommend you proceed with, and phase two is something you'll need to do eventually. And there's all these growth-driven funding opportunities out there that the township could take advantage of. So we just want to get direction on whether to proceed with a funding application that's due this month at the end of the month. And so I don't know if we have time to present that information.
Yeah, go ahead.
Carry on.
Yeah, so here there's two funding opportunities. One is it's already we have all the details and it's due at the end of the month. And there's another one that's been announced that's is coming and the application procedure and all those things are not defined yet, but we just wanted to make you aware of those of the opportunity as well. So let's start with the first one. So this is a federal program. It's focusing on wastewater infrastructure to increase housing supply. So there's a lot of money, up to $100 million of eligible dollars, and it includes everything from the planning, design, and construction. And the feds will fund up to 50% of the budget of the cost of the project. So this one is due at the end of this month, and I mean, we are currently helping other municipalities apply for this funding. We think it's a good opportunity, something that could be taken advantage of for the township and could be used to fund phase one if you so desire. And potentially, if you chose to, you could also apply for phase two, understanding that you might there's cost implications, right? So here this table shows you if you apply for phase one, and again these numbers, I think the first column, the first row, I think we should forget about the first row for now because we're gonna do some more work about how many units you're getting, right? But bottom line is if the first phase is 5.5 million, you could get up to 2.25 million from the feds, right? So they significantly reduce your costs for the township. So I mean, I think it's a win-win situation if you can get the funding approved. And just for illustration purposes, it shows you how much the funding would be that you receive and how much the township would be responsible to raise if you were to do phases 1 and 2 as part of this project. So the other thing I have to mention is if you apply for this funding and you receive it, it doesn't necessarily preclude you from applying for future funding programs to cover your share of the funding requirements. So the 2.25 million, you could potentially apply through the second funding opportunity, which is you have another slide for it's again, we don't know the full details yet. We don't know when it's due, but we know that they have 175 million in funding, and it's the criteria is kind of tied to what we're saying here for phase 1 is it addresses climate resiliency and adaptation. So like the effects of climate change, the effect of precipitation, runoff, etc. So this phase 1 would be a good candidate for that funding program too, and then you could get up to 73% of the cost, right? So if the township applies to both for phase one, for example, and is successful in both, your cost would be significantly reduced. The issue with this opportunity is that we don't know when it's due, when the applications are due, but we expect them to announce the details later this year. So just wanted to kind of bring this to your attention and get some direction as to particularly the first one is time sensitive, given that the deadline is March 31st. So we would want to know if you want to proceed for the application, and I'm assuming you're only applying for phase one, or how do you want to proceed? Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Doherty, you have a question?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The opportunity, number one that you have, it doesn't come with the provincial grant up to 73, because you mentioned it under phase or opportunity 2. So I'm a little confused. Are they both available? Are they piggybacked? Is it 50% of the 5 million and 73% of the 2.5 remaining? So how does, if we're successful, that's what I'm.
Yes. No, I think you got the gist of it. Is it because funding opportunity 2 hasn't been announced and it's not yet available. The best you could do is, if you get funding opportunity 1, is to get 73% of your remaining contribution, the 2.25 or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're gonna want to apply for that grant. It's time sensitive, so we need to give the authorization today. So
I'll make a motion that we move ahead with phase one.
grant.
Yep. Applying for the phase 1 grant.
Okay. Moved by Deputy Mayor Webb, second by Councillor Clement. All in favor?
I had a question.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
To you, Mayor Martin. So I'm okay with saying yes to that funding, but can we apply for both when the other one comes out as well?
You can put that in your motion.
Yeah, that could be in the
No,
motion.
yep, okay, I'll make the motion with
When the grant comes forward, we apply for it
For
too.
phase, yeah,
Yeah.
For phase
funding opportunity number 2.
Yeah, for phase
That's
1.
We apply for
Yes,
phase 1, and when
yes.
the other one comes available.
This is all phase 1.
All on one grant, on one motion.
Good.
So
Bev?
Kathy,
Sorry.
did you second
Councillor
that?
Flanagan?
Fine, yes.
Did that
Okay,
cover it?
Yes, yeah.
Yep, okay, so that's, all right, then, so the motion's on the floor that we apply for the first grant, and when the second one comes, we also apply for it. Moved and seconded, all in favor, and that's carried. Okay. Now, the other part would be to move ahead, keep proceeding with phase 1.
Sure.
Is that,
We've authorized the design for phase 1
Okay.
already. That has been authorized, but you can certainly move a motion to complete phase
well,
1
to keep it moving?
after the grant. After we know.
Okay, so yeah, I'll make the motion that once we've applied for the grant, staff is directly
Preparing for
yeah,
this.
prepare for phase 1 of project.
Okay. Do you have a seconder for that? Councillor Clement? Questions? All in favor? Carried. Okay. All right then, so that concludes this delegation, I think. Thank you, Gustavo. It's clear as mud now.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. And next time I'm gonna make an effort to chat with Amber and the town staff to make sure we have clear messaging to you to avoid any further misunderstanding.
Thank you very much.
That'd be wonderful.
And no problem.
Okay, a motion to receive the
Thank you.
delegation moved by Councillor Deputy Mayor Webb, second by Councillor Doherty, all in favor. That's carried. So that concludes our public meeting.
No.
No, we have one
Budget
more
meeting.
thing, budget meeting. Kathy, we did need to adjust something.
So through you, Mayor Martin, just talking, about my situation. Any chance that anyone would be available for this Friday? February
7th or 20th, but 7th is the 7th work?
seventh, okay, this Friday for everyone, I'd really appreciate it. Sure.
Okay,
We amend that then?
so
So motion.
motion by Jerry moved it. Second, I've seen your hand up, so. Or was that a question?
No, it was agreeing to the date.
Okay.
So it's fine, I'll make the motion, it's
Okay.
fine, yeah. No.
Jerry and Bev,
Thank you.
all in favor? And that's carried.
Okay.
Okay. So, okay, so next on the agenda, we will be going to closed session.
Yep.
And it's under section adopted. Section 2.3 or 239 UK. Position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on. So motion to go into close. Moved by Counselor Doherty, second by Counselor Clement, all in favor? And that's carried. Right then. So all we have left is the confirming bylaw.
Yeah, it's fine.
Or do you want, there was a motion to come out of,
That we bring the letter.
that we bring the letter for the.
Yeah.
Open the meeting.
Yep.
Motion to. Kathy. We'll bring the letter back to the open
Oh,
session.
yes.
And Bev, all in favor? Carried. Confirming by. Kathy. Bev. All in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn, Hart. Carried. All in favor? Carried.